Hi everyone, welcome back to Plum Mashable. So for today's video I'm going to be making a reusable, changeable desk calendar to take with me to work. So let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, so today's video is going to be another one of those really annoying ones where I kind of know what I'm doing, I know where I want to get to, just don't quite know how I'm going to get there. So we'll see how we go. This is coming from the idea of these. So I found these, I've seen people use them for years and I think, oh wow, that's a really cool idea. What I'd like to do is for next year use them as gifts, but I won't get there, I just won't get there this year. But these are the little, these ones are from Couture Creations, but I know you can get them from lots of different places. They're little notepads with basically the calendar stuck on them. And my idea is to have a little desk calendar that I can take to work, because I am starting to spend a little bit more time at work these days, instead of, home. And I want something that's got my crafty stuff on it, because at home I'm surrounded by it, but at work it kind of feels a bit lost. So my thought is to have like a little desk calendar, which I'll make up, that'll sit sort of like this, and that this bit here can be interchangeable, and that every month I'll make myself a little scene that I can change it up with. If I want to do 2 or 3 in a row, I can do them, and I can just sort of move them around as I feel like. That's the idea. I don't know whether it's going to work. I don't know if it's I just don't know. But that's the thought. So it's going to sort of look a little bit like that. That's the idea of it. So what I've gone ahead and done is grabbed some of my, this is the Cricut Kraft board. It's the thickest cardstock I've been able to find without moving into actual board, because I want this to stand up on its own. I don't want to have to stick anything else on it. I don't want to have to do anything, and we'll decorate it along the way. So this is the square that I'm working with. I just need to do this. I thought I'd got everything ready for you, but apparently I haven't. So this is a Uniquely Creative square. It is, for anyone that's going to ask, it is a 4.5 inch or an 11.2 centimetre, 11.1 centimetre square. You could do any size here that you like. I just liked this size to sort of go along with the calendar. I thought it just worked proportionally. And then I'll cut this out afterwards, but I want to have like a border behind. This is just a scalloped rectangle from Uniquely Creative as well. So I want that to sort of sit behind here. Actually, I might just cut this from black quickly. It may not end up being black. I may change it to like a gold or something later, but just for now I'm going to make this a black rectangle. Alright, so that'll be sort of the backing, and then the square will always sit on top. And I just like the way the scallops look behind it. Alright, so this is where my ruler is going to come in really handy. So what I know I need is I need this to be, let's go 12 and a bit. This has got like a, I'm trying not to work in inches, but sometimes it's just easier on my ruler. So it's got 1/2 inch, no sorry, 1/4 inch from there. So I'm going to go 1/4 inch from the bottom. So I'll tell you exactly how many inches that is in just a second. So it's going to be 1/2 inch from there. Let's move this to the bottom. Just to help me out here, I'm just going to tack this down. The good thing about this glue tape, I know I've told you hundreds of times, is it's not permanent for a little while. It gives you some time to move, and because I put so little on the back, it'll just grab. So I'm putting that there and having it so it's 1/2 inch from the edge of the paper to the edge of the white cardstock, and then having it, whoop, come on, there we go, and then having it from 1/2 inch to the edge of that. Okay, so that's our sort of width of it. Again, I'll tell you exactly how wide it is in just a sec. So this is bigger than my trimmer will take, so for that reason I'm going to bring out the Kraft one. It's probably just a little bit too big, but I'd rather cut it slightly too big than slightly too small. That's fine. So in the end, this piece of cardstock has ended up being 12.4 centimeters, or 4 and 6/8, I think is what it is. Don't quote me on inches. I'm not so great with it. So that's the first base of what I'm working with. And then, like I said, I want that to sit sort of there-ish, and that to sit there-ish. So I want the fold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this over. I'm going to give it a 2-inch fold at the bottom. This is how I'm trying to make it stand up. I have practiced this. I did a really bad job when I was practicing it before. So this is why I'm just doing it with you, and I'm doing it just as I'm thinking. So there's a 1 inch, and I'm again working in inches now because it sits in my board a bit better. So there's 1 inch on the bottom, which will help it stand up. I should have done 2. Okay, it's alright. There's plenty of cardstock on here. I was deliberately way too much. So I'm just going to trim that little bit at the bottom off. And let's do 2 inches. Because that way it can stick together and so I'm going to fold it, score it at 2. And then at 1 as well. And we'll do like a concertina kind of thing. So you fold it in for that one, and then over for that one, and then when I stick them together, it'll do a thing. Trust me. So I'm going to cut another one exactly the same width as that one, so that we've got a front and a back. Sorry, wrong trimmer. I'll put all the measurements at the bottom so that it kind of makes more sense. And then again we'll go with the 2 and the 1. Okay, so then my thought here is that these 2 stick together, so they go like that. They come up to be that sort of desk standy thing. But there's plenty of strength at the bottom because we've doubled that up. I'm going to have to cut it just a little bit on those little bits. But it will also fold. So it'll be flat and it'll sit there just sort of like that. Imagine that that's folded over. But it'll be able to be pushed up together and made into a nice little kind of thing. So what we then need to do is work out the height. So I'm going to measure this out, and I'm doing this all by eye because for me it's easier than trying to fit something in afterwards. Okay, I like that. I like that measurement. So that's, I think, yeah, about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go there-ish, there-ish. So that's where it folds over. And then from there, I'm just going to give it another inch to fold it over. So we fold that one over like that. And then I trim this bit off. Whoops. Just below the score line. So that's where it's going to stick. And it only needs to be one because it's going to stick straight to the back. So this is our little thing that we've made. So all I need to do now is just score this one at the exact same height as the other, but it doesn't need a score line. So it's 18.1 centimeters, which is sort of just after 7 inches. Okay. Now I'm just going to fold it first, because if I need to resize it, I can do that before I cut it. So they'll sit together. That'll fold in. Yeah, that's perfect. Cool. So just trimming just underneath where that score line is. It's probably a little bit too close to the score line. Doesn't look pretty. Okay. So that'll sit just there like that. And then they fold in together like that. And then it becomes a flat piece. And then hopefully when I do this, there we go, it all sits in a good nice fit. It does. So to assemble this, I'm going to do one other quick cutting. I'm just going to trim off just a little squidgle at the bottom of both of these ones, which is where the fold part is, so that way it folds together really nicely. I don't need to measure that. It doesn't need to be anything in particular, just needs to be there. And then to put this together, I'm going to use red tape. Now this is really strong double-sided tape, and the reason I'm going to do that is because I don't want this coming apart. I want this to be solid as I possibly can make it. So I just have to then assemble this using the tape. So grab that out. Now like I said, this is super strong tape, so hopefully it'll hold everything in exactly the spot that I like it. I've never had any problem with it not. Now you could use liquid glue for this, or even just standard double-sided tape. You don't need to use the super strong stuff, but just because I know this is going to be standing up and is going to be in a place of, it may get knocked around a bit, I just figure it's worth the extra strong tape. And then just going to line this up. Remember that little bit there is shorter. So I'm mainly trying to, it does still have some give. It's not, as soon as you touch it, it's going to stick straight away. So I'm trying to line up the creases more than anything else. There we go. I can see a little bit there on the bottom, but I think that's okay. So it'll sit up or sit down. It doesn't have to sit flat, I guess. Just flattening that out because it just feels a bit too something. but I think it'll be okay. The part that I'm worried about is that now this fold's not quite right. Because if I put that together, see how it's sort of bowing a little bit? So I want that to be flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually give this another score. Good thing is this part will be hidden, so it won't make that much of a difference. There we go. Let's try. That's better, I think. Yes, that's better. Alright, so I'll put some more red tape on here. And I'm going to put that right at the top because I want to be able to make sure that's really nice and smooth. And I like that it's even, like it's not, it doesn't look like it's leaning one way, it's not bowing one way, and I do like that that's really solid at the bottom. Cool! Alright, so there's our base. Just in case anyone is playing along, it is a 12.4, not a 12.9, 12.4 centimetres wide, and it is 17.8 centimetres tall. That is 4.75, I'm going to go, inches tall, inches wide, and just shy, just past 7 inches tall. Doesn't have to be exact, anywhere along the way. And then it's all just 1 inch extras to add on there. So then we've got the little bits here. The only part that I'm regretting at the moment is that I stuck it all together before I assembled this puzzle, because it's not it's not going to make it easy. Something I'm kind of going back and forth is how do I actually attach this, like the January, the little calendar tab. It doesn't have an extra one on the back, and I wish it did, because if it did, you could then slide that in and then you could just reuse this like year after year, and I still will be able to reuse it year after year. And in fact, I have so much little bits of wasted cardstock here at the back here. I'm going to make this with a little backing on it, so I'm just trimming a little bit off this bit of cardstock, and these are very, very small. Go. So I'm going to stick this bit of cardstock to the back so that then I can just put like a line in there and it will just fold in. So I'm going to use the red tape. No, I'm not. I was going to use the red tape again, but I'm not. So just a line of glue at the back of December, and then we'll just attach that to just the top. And what this will do then is just add that. I can now sort of slide it in and it'll sit just like that. So what I might even do, I actually kind of like even that. Didn't mean to do that. And then you've got, so I'm going to decide now what, I've got to decorate it a little bit. That's the other reason I should have waited. And I do like the black. I think the black looks kind of cool. But I'm going to add Kraft's funny, because to me I just always want to use brown. I always just want to make it look like wood. So I'm going to do that. So you might have seen in Wednesday's video when I did the faux faux wood grain look just by going direct to paper with my ink cube. I'm just going to do that again. This time I'm just using, this is gathered twigs. Yes, gathered twigs. And I'm just going around the edges because remember we don't need to go, oh actually we kind of do because bits of it are going to be seen. So the thing I like about this is that there doesn't need to be perfection with it. And it's very forgiving. So if you do get little marks on it like I'm doing right now, or have it that it's not straight or anything like that, it'll still work. It'll still look good. So I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to come back and do the other side. But just to give you a sort of idea, that's what it's going to look like. It's going to sit really beautifully. And then this is where maybe, I'm actually just going to use this same off-cutter cardstock. It's just a little bit rough at the edge because this is one of the ones I cut off. So I'm just trimming that down. But it fits perfectly. I'm just going to do the same thing to this first, and if I don't like it, I'll add something else. But I'm just trying not to get my fingers too... Really love the way that comes up. I'm just very impatient, and unfortunately that impatience means that I sometimes end up making a mess. So I don't want to smudge it, but I also don't want to have to wait. I think I am going to stick with the black because I just think that looks really cool. And then if we put that there, just seeing if this is too high. I think it is. So we'll have to come down a little bit. So because this is going to sit up a couple extra, like a little bit, we're just going to have to make sure that it's not too high. So I'm just going to cut off that's just so I can have it stuck where I need it. And if we put that on there, and I know this is hard for you guys because you're not going to be able to see it when I'm working like this, but just checking sort of where that's sitting. Getting this piece of cardstock first and just making sure it's right. This is the one that I've now got grotty finger marks all over. That's the right height, right there. Sits beautifully. Cool. Okay, so that little one is exactly 4.5 centimeters high or 1.5 inches, so it works right. So I'm just going to do that distressing on here again. Stupidly enough, that I didn't really love the way the other one had come up. I felt like it was a bit too grainy. That one actually looks much better. Okay, so I'm going to leave that to dry and get all the mess off here. I'm going to cut myself another white square. Actually, before I do, I'm going to officially attach this part. So, lots of glue all around the outside. actually might do later is add a couple of silver little things so it kind of looks like these are riveted on. Riveted, nailed, whatever. I'm giving it a very rustic look. I'm going back to the red tape for this again. I don't want it to come off. I really want this to stay stuck for a long time. So I'm doing this down just 3 edges. So we just need to do it down 1 long side and 2 of the short sides. Because remember, need that top bit to be open for the calendar to sit in. Now, if you are worried about it not being straight, if you're worried about not getting it right, you can then put a little bit of extra tape on the top so it can only go in a certain part. I'm actually quite happy just to leave it and just see what happens, or just to be able to move it if I need to. Now you can see this will just slide in. I might have to just open it a little. But it'll just slide in and sit there like that. And then you can add in your square every month. So before I finish this part, because I'm going to make the little square today as well, just grab both my matte gold and matte silver little baubles. Just to see which ones I like better. So they're not matte, they're satin, but same difference. I have a feeling I'm going to lean towards the gold here. I always find gold looks better with brown. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to use not my itty bitty ones. I'm trying to use ones that are just slightly bigger. I think the gold suits it better, but I think we'll go with the gold. We'll go with the gold. So I'm going to get 4 of these ones that are the same size. And I think that just adds just a little bit of detail to it. Alright, that is the base of my calendar, and that's what I'll be adding everything to all through this year, or until I stop doing videos, one or the other. This one is what I want to call a replaceable, reusable. So it's the image changes every month, the calendar changes every month. You could do this so that you just did one image, so the image stayed still and they just ripped off the thing every month. It'd be a really nice gift, and that's sort of what I'm thinking. I might have to do that next year. I did want to use white cardstock instead of the Kraft. I couldn't get hold of the white Cricut cardstock. So I'm going to try and find another sort of cardstock that works before I make these for other people. But I do have intentions of doing that so that I can make nice little gifts for people. And you can put photos on this. Like, you don't have to do it. Don't think of it as you have to make something to put on there. Number one, you can use anything. So if you're someone like me that likes to make backgrounds, this cutie can take basically any kind of background stamp, turnabouts, whatever. So you can make just a pattern and put that on there. I can use stencils on it. I can use oxides on it. I can use stamps on it. Anything. So that's where I think this is a really cool idea. It gives me another place to create stuff to be able to then display. So my thought is that this will then be able to, I can do art, like some art messy stuff on it if I want to. Can try out new stamps and stuff. It's kind of like a memory dex, but not. Does that make any sense? Anyway, so this little cutie, I'm going to do just a very quick little card for this one. So this was the Hero Art September 2021 My Monthly Hero Kit. And what it comes with, actually I'm going to do the stencils first. It comes with the stamps, the stencils, and the dies. And I just really love this stencil set. It's just really pretty. It's a 5-piece stencil set. So you've got 3 bits for the flowers. Oh, actually, you've got more than 3 bits for the flowers. You've got the flowers, the leaves, and the centers, I think. So I'm just trying to remember how it all comes together because I haven't used this for a little while. I'm just checking to see if there's any etch lines. No, that's the centers. That's the centers and that's the leaves. Okay, so this is the first layer that sits like that, and then that one goes on top for the detail. Okay, cool. So I'm going to grab just a bit of cardstock. I'm going to use my station for this because I find it much easier. So I'll put the cardstock in the middle. The bit I'm using is definitely too big, but I just find it easier to do it this way. And these do have little registration marks in the corners, so I can just sort of copy those as I'm going. So I'm going to do these as sunflowers, but I think I want to play with inks not oxides. So I think I'm going to do mustard seed and then a bit of fossilized amber, and then I'm going to do the wild honey for the details, and we'll just see how that works. I'm just really interested in playing with my inks more. I feel like I don't use them a lot, and that causes a problem because I have them and I don't use them. So let's give these a go and see what happens. So I'm just inking these up. I'm trying to be even. That's sort of my biggest gripe with my inking. I tend to be a bit too uneven, but for this I think it'll work because the darkness will be on the outside. And I'm going to come over the top in a second anyway with a little bit of the fossilized amber just to darken up the edges. Whoops. Just be careful of your stencils, of those little fine bits. And then we'll just come in with just a little bit of fossilized amber around the edges. And then just before I move the stencil, I'm just making sure all those registration marks have little bits. It is really easy to line this up though. I've done it before. So I'll take that off. You could stamp first too. You don't have to stencil first. I just find stenciling first means that I don't smudge my ink. So line up those. There we go. 2, 3, 4. And we'll come in with wild honey. And then we come in with the detail. Sorry, not with the detail, with the middles. I am going to label these in a second so that I get them right. So I'm going to do these in brown. This is where I'm going to use the colour that I already had out. So I'm going to use that gathered twigs. But then I'll use a little bit of the espresso for the other details. And then this is the only, I'm actually going to do this one first. The other one, this is where we'll come in with some green. I don't know if this is the right green combo, but we're going to find out. So this is bundled sage. I just don't want the really bright green. I want to just sort of pare it back just a little bit, so we'll see. Can always go over the top of it with mowed lawn if I need to. Probably some green on here anyway, so no, that's good. And this is the only part that's a little bit complicated. So everything else, the details are really like, it's just layer, 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 layer. This one, I just have to mask off the centers of the flowers while I'm doing the leaves, and then the leaves while I'm doing the center of the flowers. It's not difficult. I'll grab this full stick it post-it note. Could do this with washi tape as well. It's going to use Rustic Wilderness for the green. Work that over. Just build that colour up a little bit. And then the brown I'm going to use Vintage Photo. Oh, I missed one. I knew I did. And then we can come in with the Vintage Photo, which is just a little bit darker again. Actually, no, I need it darker than that. We'll do walnut stain instead. If you don't have all the inks, or you don't have lots of colours of ink, you can just build these on top of each other. Like if you do 2 layers of bundled sage on top of each other, they will turn out very dark. Now, I don't have little brushes for my inks, which is why I'm using the big ones and just trying to be really careful. But that would be very helpful too if you did. You could just use little brushes. I do have them for my oxides, but not for my inks. Alright, let's see what we get under all this goodness. I'm nervous. Oh, how good's that? Now, I'll go and clean those off after I'm finished filming. But I also want to write the numbers on there so that I know which order to do them in. Moving forward. Now, you could leave that as it is. I want to stamp the top layer on it because I'm a crazy person. So I'm going to pop this in the Misty. It's going to be too big for the Misty. I thought it would. So I'm just going to trim off the edges a little bit. You don't need the registration marks or anything now, so if you did trim them off, that would be fine. Get this stamped out. Now you could also do this in brown. You could heat emboss it. You could do it with gold. Like there's lots and lots of different ways you could do this. I like to stencil first and then stamp it, as scary as it is, because it is absolutely terrifying, because I'm so worried I'm going to mess it up. But you could stamp it first and then stencil, but I find I always get, not always, but I do find I get more bleeding or more transfer, and I don't like it. So this is why we do it this way. I'm going to use my Hero Arts ink, but VersaFine would be great here too, or a clear would be beautiful. Just getting my pressure tool. Please don't mess up. This is the moment that I'm panicking, because this adds all the detail and I love it. I think I'm going to bring the Onyx Blacking, the VersaFine. The Hero Arts just isn't, it doesn't sit as nicely on the ink, I find. So just go in with the VersaFine instead. Bonus of using the Misty, I can do that. Okay. Making sure that's lined up in the same spot. Isn't that stunning? Just need a little bit more in the middle. And I don't mind doing it a couple of times to make sure I get it right. I'm concentrating on the middle this time so that I get that bit right. And just putting the extra pressure in the middle. It's gorgeous. That's just so pretty. And so little work. Like, 5 stencils feels like a lot. I know that. But it's really not that hard. It's a bit of a set and forget kind of way to do it. Oh, I love that so much. I just love the detail. It just, that image is amazing. And that's, sunflowers, yes, are traditionally yellow, but you don't have to do sunflowers in yellow. You can do sunflowers in any colour you like. Oh, I love, 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 love. All right, I'm going to heat set this because I don't want any of this to move. And then I'm going to die cut it, and then we're going to work out how to put it on that square. All right, that's worked reasonably well. There's a couple of little spots that I pulled off a little bit, but nothing massive. I love that image so much. Isn't it just gorgeous? Oh, so good. That bundled sage and rustic wilderness is actually a really good combo. I never would have thought of that. Alright, so the first thing we need to realise with this square is it is a square and it is bigger than my image, and that's okay. You could easily, just to pull this back in again, if you wanted to have one that runs off, actually I'm going to leave it hanging off because I think that looks cute. You can have them hanging off, but it kind of just gives you an area to work with, I guess. So for the back, I'm going to bring this back in again. I'm just going to do some really standard clouds. I don't feel like I need to do anything fancy for the background, but you could. Just grabbing out my stencils. Just want my cloudy stencil. I always find my slimline ones really quickly, but these ones will always take a little bit longer. And I'm going to use Salvage Patina because I just love the colour. I am using it with a blue brush, so there might be a little bit of tumbled glass or something else on here, but that's okay. And just standard clouds that I do. So just following along with the stencil. Some bits a bit darker, some bits a bit lighter. And then once I like that one, pull it across, rotate it, find another cloud formation. And I just try and make them so that there's a bit of difference and they're not the same the whole way down. I'm also just going to bring in that tape, what's it called? Post-it note, just to hide that little bit. And you can go up and over the previous bit. You just sort of, whatever you think looks nice, and then just work your way down. And the other cool thing with this stencil, don't forget, if you're going to do it though, make sure you wipe it off first. But you can rotate this or flip it and use it the other way. So you don't have to just use those 4 configurations. You can flip it over and use the back of it as well. So there's 8 configurations that you can use. And once I get to the bottom, I don't want this bottom bit to be white, so I just easily go over the bottom. Not too hard, not with too much pressure, but just a little. So I don't actually think that looks as patina-y as it should. I think it looks a little bit more blue. But that's not a bad thing. I'm just going to use this. So I'm going to grab a bit of water. So I want some big splatters, so that's why it's going on my hand and then splattering in. And then just a little quick mist as well. Letting that settle for a second. And then I'll pick that up. Yeah. I love splatter. That might have been a slightly too big a splatter, but it's okay. And then I'm also going to do just a little bit of patina splatter. Now I could use a little bit of watercolour metallic on here as well. I think a little bit of the white would actually look really pretty, but I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it because I don't want to take too far away from the sunflowers. I think the sunflowers on their own are stunning. Alright, so hit this with the heat tool, get it to dry. Alright, gorgeous background, beautiful focal image. I do kind of not like the way it kind of, I don't know, there's something now that it's a cloud that I don't like. Let's just have a look here. I've got some water on there when I was flicking. No, I'm going to go with it. I think it's fine. Two things I'm going to do. First thing is I'm going to put 2 more layers on the back of this, and I'm going to cut that out really quickly with just some scrap cardstock and put it together. And then I've just realised I haven't worked out how I'm going to stick this down, because I can't stick it because then I can't pull it off to do it again. So just let me think about that while I'm cutting these out with the die machine and sticking it all together, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I've just got the flower sitting over there underneath a bit of, under an acrylic block, words. What I'm going to do, and actually I'm going to use black. So there's a bit of, I've got a spare piece of black cardstock here. I'm just flying things everywhere. It's going to cut this down to sort of like 4 centimetres-ish. Doesn't have to be right, doesn't have to be straight. No one's ever going to see it. I'm doing it in black so you can't see it. And then what I want this to be is just a little smaller than the square. So I'm going to use like a hook system is how I'm going to do this. So I'm grabbing that red tape again. Anytime I don't want something to ever move ever, red tape. Yeah, and yours going to cut too much. I always cut too much tape. It's a bad habit, but I do. Oh, that one was good. Well done, me. So you cut, or not cut, pull those 2 off. I'm actually really nervous. I know this will work, so I don't know why I'm nervous, but I am really nervous. I'm going to pop that there. So you can still see it, you can still tell it's there. But then what we're going to do is we're going to add in a little hook piece to the back of our cardstock so that it'll be able to pop in here. So this is just a little bit of scrap. It's nothing exciting whatsoever. The hardest part's going to be getting it to line up once I've popped it on here, but I'll do this bit first. So I'm just popping the red tape on. But then I'm just going to put just a teensy little bit of glue tape. And why do we do that? Because it's repositionable. Except it didn't stick. Because, of course, duh. Let's try it this way instead. A little bit of glue tape on the back. I'm just popping it somewhere. It doesn't have to be in a particularly great spot because you can do a lot of the wiggling once it's stuck. Okay, so the hardest part's going to be making sure it's down. No, that's easy. It is going to stick up a bit though, which is the part that I don't like. Okay, so this is just me testing, just to make sure that what I'm doing is going to work, or kind of going to work. So I'm just going to pop, oh no, it's not long enough at the bottom. Again, this is all scrap, so it doesn't make any difference. There we go. So I'm going to have the bottom bit, and again, I'll put this on with red tape in a sec. So we come up for the bottom bit. It's not quite doing. It is. That's definitely what. No, it's really not, because it's still sticking up. Is it bad enough to worry about? No, it's not. No, it's not. So you know what? Thank God I didn't use red tape then. I'm just going to go with this. So we use this slightly wider bit, because I feel like width is better. So just make sure I put that somewhere at the top. Always down a little bit, because you don't want it right at the top. And you can adjust this to sit in the right spot. It's always going to stick up a little bit. If it really worries you, you can put a little bit of glue tape in the corners and it'll be fine. But it doesn't worry me enough to stress. Alright, so I've got that. I've got my gorgeous flowers, which are going to sit here like this. And what I thought I would do is grab out this beauty, which I don't use anywhere near as often as I should. This is the Concord and Ninth All Year Long stamp set. And it's got the most beautiful scripty words, months on it. So I'm going to heat emboss this with gold. So it'll bring in a little bit of the gold from the rest of the calendar. But you could honestly do it with anything. And I'm just using an acrylic block because I'm too lazy to get my Misty out at the moment. I'm so close to being finished and I just want to get finished. So we'll stamp out January. Just some gold embossing powder on this. It's probably the wrong kind of gold. This one's probably a bit too shiny, but the gold will look lovely with the yellow too. And while we wait for that to cool down a little bit, actually no, because I was going to wait for it to cool down and stick this down, but I need to make sure that the month is in the right spot while I do. I'm just buffing off that powder so we go back to that beautiful black. And then I'm just going to fussy cut around this. So leaving a generous kind of black border around the outside. No, opposite. We're going to put it in the top corner instead. And I'm going to put on that on with some foam tape. Cool. So I'm going to stick this down. I'm just going to use glue tape for this one because it's now stuck. Could have used foam tape for the whole of this as well. You didn't need to use liquid glue. I just find I get a little bit more wiggle with the liquid glue. So I'm just popping that on. Once I'm happy, we can put the January down. This one I will add just a little bit of liquid glue in the corner because that's where it's going to attach to my floral arrangement. Now it's a little bit higher than the flower, probably like a piece of paper's worth. It's not enough to worry about. And then I'm just going to rub off the excess glue. Just don't need it there. And then let's pop this down, or pop this onto our calendar for the first time and see how we've done. So we've got that little pokey thing at the back there. It's not always going to go on smooth, but it won't be hard to sort. Alright, you know a video of mine's gone too long when the camera rejects it. Thankfully I'm just about done. Whoops. So I was just trying to pop this in here. So just giving that a wiggle. There it is. And I can just pop that into the right spot. And there we have our little calendar. Now I like the fact that this sticks off, but I won't do that every month. And the good thing is I can just pull this off at the end. I can pop a hole in it and put it on a ring and keep it, or I can pop it. I'm sure I'll find a way to store these. But I really love that. I'm going to take that one out because that one is unfortunately got a bit of ink on it. So I'm just going to do the same thing with this one. I'm just trying to see if I've got any wide cardstock left. I don't think I do. That's all right. So just doing the same thing we did before, adding that as a backer. going to live with it. Okay, so that slides in there. Every month I can just pull that off. And that's going to sit there just so beautifully. I really love this. Remember at the start I said I didn't know if this was going to work. I knew where I was going, but I didn't know if it was going to go. I think it's gone. I think it's worked the way I wanted it to. There are lots of different ways you could do this. You could do it with, I did think about doing like discs at the top and having that you folded it. You could ring bind it. If you've got a cinch or something like that, you could do that. You could do it any way you like. You could also make this as a circle. You could make it as a rectangle. So many different ways. So just keep all of that in mind. This is very personalizable, if that's the word. Does that make sense? You can make this anything you like, and I think it's really, really cool. So I'll be doing the little square bits of these once a month, every month, for the rest of as long as I want to. And I'll do different ways every month. Some will be with stamp sets, some will be with just backgrounds, and I'll just put the month in there, and we'll have some fun with different products along the way. So if it's something you'd like to see, please leave it down below, or of course you can leave it on any of my socials. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see those extra videos that are coming. I will put all of the measurements for how to make this down below. I know we struggled, but once I've got this, I think it's really good. So I'll leave them all down below. So if you want to make your own, you can. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you again in my next one. Sending lots of huggles. Bye!